Right now, somewhere in your garden, there's a plant you paid good money for that has already decided it's not staying in its bed. It's not a weed that blew in on the wind. You bought it. You planted it on purpose, probably because it looked charming in a 1-gallon pot at the garden center. And in 18 months, that same plant is going to be the reason you're on your knees in October with a shovel, sweating through a jacket, wondering exactly where you went wrong. Here's the part nobody tells you at checkout. Garden centers make money twice on plants like this. Once when you buy it, and again a year later when you come back for 3 more perennials to replace whatever it smothered. So the incentive to warn you is basically zero. Nobody's handing you a card that says, "This one's going to eat your border." Welcome to Golden Root Living. This is where we talk about what actually happens in the ground, not just what looks good in the pot at checkout. If you're tired of losing plants to something you were told was low maintenance, you're in the right place. Today we're going through 15 perennials that look completely innocent on the shelf and turn into a multi-year fight once they hit real soil. For every single one, I'm giving you the exact removal window, what actually works, and a well-behaved alternative that gives you the same look without the war. Stick around for number 1. It has the most stubborn root system on this entire list, and if you've got it, you need to hear the removal method before you touch a shovel. If you've ever lost a whole bed to something you were told was just a pretty perennial, go ahead and hit subscribe right now. This channel exists to help you catch these problems before you're the one doing the rescuing. Number 15. Evening Primrose. Cheerful yellow, 4-petaled flowers that pop open right at dusk. Sold as a charming, low-maintenance cottage plant. And on the surface, that's exactly what it looks like. What the seed packet leaves out is that evening primrose is one of the most prolific self-seeders in the entire perennial world. One mature plant can drop several thousand seeds by early September, and by the following June, you'll have seedlings wedged into every open gap across the whole bed. The fix has a narrow window. Deadhead every spent flower head before the seed capsules dry out and crack open. Late July through August is your target. Miss that window, and you've already planted next year's problem for free. Once the seed is down, dig the parent clumps out completely before the ground freezes. If you love that warm yellow color, threadleaf coreopsis, specifically the variety Zagreb, gives you the same golden show with fine, fern-like foliage, blooming from June through frost. It stays exactly where you plant it. No wandering seedlings, no surprises next spring. One clarification worth making: this problem is specific to the common wild-type evening primrose, the cheap seed packet version sold in bulk at big box stores. A few compact hybrid varieties are genuinely well-behaved, so it's worth checking which one you have before you rip anything out. Number 14. Chinese Lantern. Those bright orange, papery husks that dry beautifully for fall arrangements. Gorgeous on a mantle, rough on everything around it in the ground. Nobody at checkout mentions that Chinese Lantern isn't really a plant so much as an underground occupation force. The roots can run 3 to 5 feet in a single growing season, popping up in the middle of your peonies, tangled under your hostas, right along your house foundation. If you've got it, dig out the entire clump this week, tracing as much of the root system as you possibly can. Every fragment left behind will resprout next spring. And do not compost any of it. Bag it and put it in the trash, because compost piles rarely get hot enough to kill root fragments. For the same architectural fall interest payoff, Baptisia and balloon flower are both excellent swaps. Baptisia holds strong structure all season and turns a moody black bronze in fall. Balloon flower gives you late summer blooms right into the border, and both stay exactly where you put them. Number 13. Ribbon grass. Variegated blades striped white and green, marketed as an ornamental grass for borders and edging. It is not ornamental in the way that word usually implies. It's one of the most aggressive rhizomatous grasses in the entire ground cover trade. Over about 3 seasons, it can run 6 to 8 feet in every direction, choking out neighboring perennials and creeping straight into your lawn. Cut it down to the ground now, then start excavating the edges of the clump with a sharp spade. Sift through the soil as you go. Every white running root has to come out, because any piece left behind starts the whole cycle over. If you want that same striped or fine-textured look at the border, native little bluestem or switchgrass are the better call. Both hold a tight clump exactly where planted, keep their shape through winter for structure, and turn a beautiful bronze color in fall. This one has a reputation for a reason. Plenty of gardeners who plant ribbon grass in one corner bed, thinking a little white striping will brighten a shady spot, find that within a few years, it's jumped into 2 or 3 other beds entirely, traveling underground beneath walkways and patios. Getting it back out usually means a full weekend of hand digging and sifting soil for every fragment. That's not a decorative grass. That's a slow-motion garden invasion sold at nearly every big box store in the country. Number 12. Spiderwort. Purple, three-petaled flowers on slender stems, sold as a shade-tolerant cottage perennial that supposedly asks nothing of you. What the plant tag conveniently skips is that spiderwort self-seeds aggressively, spreads by rhizome on top of that, and by midsummer, flops open in the center into a sprawling, floppy mess that stays ugly clear through fall. Cut every plant down to the ground now, before the seed pods have a chance to dry and split. Then dig out any clumps that have already escaped past where you originally planted them. For that same blue-purple color without the mess, Amsonia, blue starflower, is close to perfect. Fine, narrow foliage, sky-blue star-shaped flowers in spring, and clear golden yellow foliage in fall. It stays as a tight, non-spreading clump for decades. Number 11. Yellow Archangel. Silver-green leaves marbled with cream. Small yellow flowers, sold aggressively at chain garden centers as a shade ground cover. Here's what most people don't know. Several states have classified yellow archangels as a noxious weed and banned it from sale outright, because it escapes garden beds into forests and pushes out native understory plants across entire regions. If you've got it, rip up the whole mat now while the soil is still soft from summer rain. Every root fragment can resprout, so check the area again next spring and pull any regrowth immediately. For that same silvery, shaded corner look, native wild ginger works beautifully in darker corners, and foam flower is a great option for slightly brighter shade. Both are native, both stay controlled, and both give you the foliage color without the ecological cost. This isn't only a regional issue either. Extension services in several other states and provinces have documented it escaping cultivated beds into forest understory, well beyond where it's formally banned. Quick one before we keep going. Drop the plant you regret planting most in your own yard, and your state, down in the comments. I read every single one. Number 10. Chameleon plant. The multicolored ground cover with green, cream, red, and pink variegated heart-shaped leaves. It's been sold since the 1990s as a colorful, easy shade ground cover, and extension services across the country now rank it among the single hardest perennials to remove once it's established in a bed. The rhizomes are brittle and shallow, which sounds like it should make removal easy. It does the opposite. Every time you try to dig it out, the roots snap, and each fragment resprouts as its own plant. Standard herbicide doesn't reliably control it either, so there's no easy chemical shortcut. The only removal strategy that actually works is smothering. Cut the whole patch down to the ground, cover it completely with cardboard or heavy black plastic weighted at the edges, and leave it in place for a full growing season. Then hand dig whatever tries to come up around the perimeter the following spring. Even with this method, stubborn stands can take 2 full years to fully clear. Prevention matters here too. If a neighbor has it, keep a buffer zone of bare soil between your gardens, since it will cross a property line without any help from you. For that same variegated foliage effect in a plant that actually stays put, Brunera Jack Frost is the swap. Silver, heart-shaped leaves all season, tiny blue flowers in spring, and it holds as a manageable clump for 15 to 20 years. Number 9. Tansy. Bright yellow, button-shaped flowers on tall stems, sold at herb-focused garden centers as a charming heirloom herb. Tansy is toxic to cats, dogs, and livestock. It spreads by both rhizome and seed, and it's classified as a noxious weed in several western and midwestern states. Cut every flower head now, before the seed heads mature, and start digging out the parent clumps, extracting as much of the root system as you can. Bag and trash the tops. Do not compost. For that same golden, flat-topped flower look in a plant that's actually safe around pets and kids, Achillea moonshine is the swap. Silvery foliage, lemon-yellow flower plates, stays as a compact clump, and butterflies genuinely love it. There's a reason tansy keeps showing up in older farmhouse gardens, especially in New England and Appalachia. It was widely planted as a folk medicinal going back centuries, and the seed bank in older properties can persist for decades. If you bought an old property and tansy keeps coming up every spring, you're dealing with historical seed rain, and it can take 3 to 5 years of persistent pulling to fully drain that seed bank. Number 8. Sweet Autumn Clematis. The vine that covers a fence in a cloud of small, fragrant white flowers every September. It's sold at almost every garden center across the eastern half of the country, and it's officially listed as invasive in more than a dozen states. The real danger is seed production. One mature vine can drop tens of thousands of wind-dispersed seeds in a single September, and by the following spring, you'll have sweet autumn clematis coming up in fences, hedgerows, and woodlots for a quarter-mile downwind. The single most important control action is timing. Prune the vine hard immediately after flowering ends, before the seed heads mature. That's the move that actually stops the spread. If it's climbing a tree or shrub you actually want and choking it out, cut the vine at the base of the trunk and pull it down from there. For that same fragrant, white, late summer vine effect, native Clematis virginiana gives you nearly the same look without reseeding the entire neighborhood. One timing note worth remembering. The gap between flowering and seed maturity is usually only 3 to 4 weeks, so if your vine finished blooming in late August, pruning hard in the first half of September is what actually stops that year's seed rain. Number 7. Plume Poppy. 8 feet tall, dramatic gray-green foliage with feathery plumes of cream flowers, sold as an architectural back-of-border statement piece. Plume Poppy is impressive in year 1, noticeably more aggressive by year 2, and a full property occupation by year 3. The thick underground rhizomes can run 20 feet through neighboring beds, popping up in the middle of established peonies, hostas, and phlox. Start excavating the edges of the clump now, while you can still trace where the mother plant actually ends. Every year you wait, the perimeter roughly doubles, and once plume poppy is genuinely mixed into your other perennials, you're moving those plants to a rescue bed just to save them. A quick safety note: the sap can irritate skin, so wear gloves if you're spending an afternoon cutting and digging it out. For that same dramatic, tall, back-of-border presence, goat's beard and baptisia are both strong swaps. Goat's beard gives you the same feathery white flower panicles without any rhizome invasion. Baptisia gives you architectural blue-green foliage all season, and it stays as one contained clump. Number 6. Comfrey. Blue-purple, bell-shaped flowers, sold to permaculture gardeners as a genuinely beneficial herb. The problem is underground. Comfrey's taproot goes 18 to 24 inches down, and every fragment of that taproot left in the soil regenerates a new plant. Once you have comfrey, you effectively have comfrey forever, unless you commit to a real multi-year removal project. If you've got any comfrey in a bed right now, this is the moment to start digging. The deeper you go, the better your odds. Extract every inch of taproot you can trace, because anything you miss is coming back next spring, and the older the plant gets, the harder removal becomes. A narrow drain spade or a dedicated weeding tool tends to work better here than a standard flat spade, which just slices through the root instead of following it down. For that same pollinator magnet purple flower show, anise hyssop is the swap. Bumblebees swarm it all summer. It stays as a compact clump, and it holds beautiful vertical flower spikes for about 8 weeks straight. Number 5. Obedient plant. The name is basically false advertising. Sold with pink or white flower spikes in late summer, marketed as obedient, because the individual flowers can be pushed side to side and stay there. The plant itself, in the ground, is one of the least obedient perennials in the American nursery trade. It runs by rhizome through an entire bed within about 3 seasons. Cut every flowering stem down now, before the seed heads mature, then start excavating the clump aggressively with a spade, tracing and removing every white rhizome you can find. Missing even a foot means the patch is back in force next spring. For that same tall, pink or white flower spike look, Liatris and Salvia caridana are both strong swaps. Vertical color from plants that never spread past where you planted them. Number 4. Gooseneck loosestrife. White, curved flower spikes shaped like a goose's neck, sold as a charming cottage perennial. In the ground, it spreads by underground rhizome into a dense mat that can swallow an entire garden bed in about 3 seasons and jump straight into the neighboring lawn. Start excavating the edges of the clump now, while the outline is still visible. Dig out every rhizome you can extract, and go deep, at least 8 inches. For that same white, vertical, spiky look in a genuinely well-behaved native perennial, Culver's root is the swap. Tall white candles, stays as a tight clump for decades, and is a strong magnet for native pollinators. One thing worth knowing, gooseneck loosestrife has a yellow-flowered cousin, Lysomachia punctata, that some gardeners plant thinking it's the safer version. It's not, it's actually more aggressive. If your loosestrife has upright yellow flowers instead of white curved spikes, dig even deeper and check the neighboring lawn in spring, since it tends to pop up in turf grass with real enthusiasm once it crosses a bed edge. If you want more of these before and after fixes showing up in your feed, go ahead and hit subscribe now. That's genuinely what keeps videos like this from disappearing into the algorithm. Number 3. Bee balm. Monarda, the pollinator favorite that basically every gardening magazine tells you to plant. Bees swarm it, hummingbirds work it constantly. Here's the part that never makes it onto the plant tag. Standard bee balm spreads by underground rhizome into a widening ring every year, and the center of that ring reliably develops powdery mildew so severe by August that the middle turns to gray-dusted, crispy brown foliage. What you end up with is a hollow donut of half-dead foliage that keeps expanding outward. Now is the time to divide it. Cut the mildewed center out entirely, thin the whole patch, and dig out any outer rhizomes that have crossed into neighboring territory. Do this every 3 years, or the whole bed eventually becomes bee balm. For a genuinely better pollinator magnet alternative, wild bergamot, Monarda fistulosa, the native species with pale lavender flowers, is significantly more mildew-resistant, and native bees actually prefer it. Or go straight to anise hyssop, no mildew, doesn't spread, and blooms for 8 to 10 straight weeks. Number 2. Mint and lily of the valley. 2 classic grandmother's garden pass-along plants that I'm grouping together because they're the same mistake wearing different clothes. Both smell wonderful. Both are toxic. Both spread by underground rhizome into a mat that runs under fences and into lawns, and doesn't stop on its own. Lily of the valley has a well-earned reputation. A small patch planted decades ago in an old front border can, given enough time, spread under an entire lawn. It's toxic to pets and to kids who might put the red berries in their mouths. And once established under a lawn, it usually takes years of hand digging to fully clear. Mint has the same rhizome behavior, spreads even faster, and is just as tenacious once loose in open soil. It's genuinely one of the most commonly regretted plantings among home gardeners. Put in a bed once, decades of fighting it after. If you've got either one, dig the clumps out along with as much of the rhizome mat as you can extract, and bag and trash it. From this point forward, mint only goes in a plastic pot. Even if you want that in-the-bed look, plunge the pot into the ground to the rim, because the pot walls are the only thing that actually keeps mint contained. For lily of the valley's fragrant white spring flowers, foam flower is the swap. Same star-shaped blooms in April, staying as a controlled clump even under trees. For mint's herb function, plant whichever variety you like in a large container on the patio instead, never directly in the ground. Quick thing before the last one. If you've ever fought one of the plants on this list and felt like you were the only gardener in America losing to it, go ahead and hit like. You're genuinely not alone. Number 1. Creeping bellflower and bishop's weed. 2 plants sold as pretty, low-maintenance ornamentals that share one specific trait, the deepest, most fragmentation-resistant root systems on this entire list. Creeping bellflower has purple, bell-shaped flowers and a taproot that can run 12 inches deep or more. Bishop's weed has green and white variegated leaves and a shallow rhizome mat that resprouts from literally every fragment left behind. If you've got either one, this is the one to tackle first, and fall is the right time. For creeping bellflower, sift the soil down to about 12 inches, tracing every piece of taproot you can find. For bishop's weed, never rototill it. Tilling doesn't control it, it multiplies it, chopping the rhizome mat into hundreds of fragments that each become their own plant. Hand digging, slow and thorough, is genuinely the only method that works. Of everything on this list, this is the one most gardeners say they regret planting the most. If you've got it, rip it first, before you touch anything else on this list. 15 perennials. Every single one of them looked like a genuinely good idea sitting in a nursery pot at the garden center. And every one of them can cost you years of digging if you leave them in the ground through the fall. If you're trying to remember which of these you actually have, here's the short version. Anything spreading by rhizome needs to be dug, not just cut back. Cutting the top only slows it down for a season. Anything spreading by seed needs to be deadheaded before the seed heads dry, which for most of this list means acting in the next few weeks. And anything with a deep taproot, like comfrey or creeping bellflower, needs patience more than anything else. Multi-year removal is still removal. Don't wait for spring on any of these. Pull them now, while they're still showing you exactly where they are, and before they've had a chance to seed for next year. Plant the alternative in their place, and you'll actually get to enjoy that spot in the garden instead of fighting for it every summer. If this saved you from making a mistake, or if it's too late and you're already dealing with one of these, tell me which one down in the comments, along with your state or region, and hit subscribe if you want more of these before and after breakdowns. I'll see you in the next one.